Good day, everyone. Today, I will be presenting on the load line, also known as the plimsoll mark. The load line is one of the most important safety features in maritime transport because it indicates the maximum depth to which a ship can be safely loaded. By preventing overloading, it helps maintain adequate buoyancy, stability, and seaworthiness throughout a voyage. Malaysia has demonstrated a strong commitment to international maritime governance by ratifying 31 out of the 69 major international maritime conventions, consisting of 30 conventions under the International Maritime Organization, IMO, and 1 convention under the International Labour Organization, ILO. Among these are the International Convention on Load Lines 1966, Illc 1966, and the Protocol of 1988 relating to the International Convention on Load Lines. These instruments play an important role in maritime safety by establishing international standards for ship freeboard, load line assignment, surveys, and certification. Together, they ensure that ships maintain adequate buoyancy, stability, and seaworthiness while operating safely during international voyages. The International Convention on Load Lines, commonly known as Illc 1966, was adopted on April 5, 1966 by the International Maritime Organization, or IMO. The convention entered into force internationally on July 21, 1968. Malaysia ratified the convention on January 12, 1971, and it entered into force in Malaysia on April 12, 1971 under Article 28 of the Convention. The main objective of the Convention is to establish uniform international standards for determining the safe loading limits of ships. In 1988, a protocol to the ILLC was adopted to harmonize survey and certification procedures among major maritime conventions. The protocol entered into force internationally on February 3, 2000. Malaysia ratified the protocol on November 11, 2011, and it entered into force in Malaysia on February 11, 2012. This protocol introduced the harmonized system of survey and certification, known as HSSC. Through HSSC, load line certification is coordinated with other major conventions such as SALAS and MARPOL, improving efficiency and consistency in vessel inspections and certification. Now that we have discussed the background of the convention, let us look at its application and the types of vessels that are required to comply with these requirements. Under the Load Line Convention, ships that are 24 meters or more in length are required to comply with load line regulations. These include cargo ships, oil tankers, bulk carriers, and passenger ships. Ships below 24 meters are generally covered under the Malaysian Load Line Certificate requirements, commonly known as MLFC. Certain vessels are exempted from the convention, including warships, fishing vessels, and pleasure yachts not engaged in trade. The convention also standardizes the calculation of freeboard, which is the vertical distance between the waterline and the deck line. This ensures sufficient reserve buoyancy and reduces the risk of flooding. To better understand the importance of the load line, it is useful to look at its historical development. The history of the load line can be traced back to the 19th century. Samuel Plimsoll, a British politician and social reformer, campaigned against the dangerous practice of overloading ships. At that time, many vessels were sent to sea carrying excessive cargo, resulting in numerous maritime accidents and loss of life. His efforts eventually led to the Merchant Shipping Act of 1876, which required ships to display a visible mark indicating their safe loading limit. Today, this symbol is known worldwide as the plimsoll mark and remains an important safeguard for maritime safety. Having understood the history of the plimsoll mark, let us now examine how load line requirements are regulated in Malaysia. In Malaysia, load line requirements are governed under Part 6 of the Merchant Shipping Ordinance 1952, or MSO 1952. The ordinance requires Malaysian registered ships to comply with international load line standards and maintain valid load line certificates. According to Section 311 of the MSO 1952, a ship must not be loaded in such a way that its load line mark becomes submerged when the vessel is upright and floating in salt water. In simple terms, a vessel must never be loaded beyond its legal loading limit. If this requirement is violated, the owner and the master may be fined, and the vessel may be detained until compliance is achieved. Besides cargo ships, special provisions are also established for passenger ships and certification requirements. For passenger ships, Section 312 introduces the subdivision load line. This load line takes into account the vessel's watertight compartments and overall design to ensure that it remains stable and buoyant during emergencies. Section 317 further states that no ship shall proceed to sea without a valid load line certificate. The certificate serves as proof that the vessel has been surveyed, marked, and certified according to applicable regulations. Failure to produce a valid certificate may result in fines and detention of the ship. To support the implementation of these legal requirements, the Marine Department Malaysia issues a series of guidance documents. To support implementation of these requirements, the Marine Department Malaysia issues Malaysian Shipping Notices, or MSN. These notices provide official guidance and technical instructions relating to load line compliance. Examples include notices concerning the implementation of the Load Lines Convention, the harmonized system of survey and certification, and vessel stability and trim information. These notices help shipowners, masters, and surveyors understand and comply with applicable maritime regulations. After understanding the regulatory requirements, let us take a closer look at the structure of the Plimsoll mark itself. The Plimsoll mark consists of a circular disc with a horizontal line passing through its center. This line indicates the maximum permissible draft of a ship when fully loaded. Beside the disc are several seasonal load line marks, including TF, tropical fresh water, F, fresh water, T, tropical seawater, S, summer seawater, W, winter seawater, WNA, winter North Atlantic. These markings take into account variations in water density, temperature, and seasonal weather conditions. Apart from regulations and markings, ship design also plays an important role in load line assignment. The underwater hull shape of a vessel significantly influences its buoyancy and load line assignment. Container ships generally have finer hull forms designed for speed and fuel efficiency. Because they have a smaller underwater volume, they may require deeper drafts to achieve the required displacement. In contrast, bulk carriers and oil tankers usually have fuller hull forms with greater natural buoyancy. As a result, the positioning of their load line marks differs from that of container ships. Therefore, hull design plays an important role in determining safe loading limits. Another important aspect is the location of the load line mark on the vessel. The load line mark must be permanently painted on both the port side and starboard side of the vessel at the midship area. The mark must be clearly visible during inspections conducted by surveyors and port authorities. Proper placement allows inspectors to quickly identify overloading, excessive submersion, or uneven loading conditions that may affect the vessel's stability. Every load line mark includes a symbol identifying the recognized organization, or RO, responsible for certifying the ship. Examples of recognized organizations approved by Malaysia include American Bureau of Shipping, ABS, Bureau Veritas, BV, China Classification Society, CCS, DNV, Indian Register of Shipping, IRS, Korean Register, KR, Lloyd's Register, LR, Nippon Kaiji Kyokai, Class NK, and Ship Classification Malaysia, SCM. These organizations are authorized to conduct surveys, assign load lines, and issue certificates on behalf of the flag administration. Having examined the requirements and implementation of load lines, we can now appreciate their significance in maritime safety. The International Load Line Convention ensures global consistency in determining ship freeboard and stability requirements. It requires ships to maintain sufficient reserve buoyancy to prevent flooding and loss of stability. Different ship types, including cargo ships, tankers, bulk carriers, and passenger vessels, are assigned appropriate freeboards based on their design, structure, and operational characteristics. This system helps improve safety and reduce maritime accidents worldwide. After understanding the convention and its requirements, we can now examine how the Load Lines Convention 1966 and the Load Lines Protocol 1988 apply to UUM-BOL. Load Lines Convention 1966. The vessel UUM-BOL is an oil tanker registered under UUM Oil Tanker SDN BHD and flies the Malaysian flag. With a length of 222.17 meters and operating on international voyages, it is required to comply with the International Convention on Load Lines 1966, ILLC 1966, as it exceeds the minimum length requirement of 24 meters. Under the convention, the vessel must be assigned an approved freeboard and load line and carry a valid international load line certificate. The load line mark indicates the maximum safe draft of the vessel, helping to maintain adequate buoyancy, stability, and safety while preventing overloading and protecting the vessel, crew, cargo, and marine environment. Load Lines Protocol 1988. As UUM-BOL is subject to the International Convention on Load Lines 1966, it must also comply with the Protocol of 1988. The protocol introduced the Harmonized System of Survey and Certification, HSSC, which coordinates load line surveys and certification with major conventions such as SALAS and MARPOL. In conclusion, UUM-BOL must comply with both the International Convention on Load Lines 1966 and the Protocol of 1988.
Thank you for watching.